Attention Vikings fans, a player has arrived via a nearly silent trade, but he could become the decisive cog to balance the offense in 2025. Meanwhile, an old NFC North rival, known for leading locker rooms and provoking receivers, could cross the boundaries of hatred and don purple, as long as the franchise's budget can take the hit. These are impactful decisions, with playoff weight and potential for controversy. Welcome! Show your support for the Vikings by reaching 100 likes on today's video. Jordan Mason, the newcomer to the Vikings from the 49ers, has been labeled by analysts as the most underrated move of the offseason in Minnesota. And honestly, they're right. The 26-year-old running back arrived almost unnoticed, involved in a mid-round draft pick trade. But the truth is that his physical style, growing production, and immediate fit could transform the Vikings' offense into something much more dangerous and unpredictable than what we've seen in recent years. The analysis comes from Alec Lewis of The Athletic, who stated, "Mason is not just a product of the 49ers' elite running system. He has vision, lateral agility, and the physicality to be a nightmare for defenses. And Minnesota knows this well. In Week 2 of last season, he rushed for 100 yards and tore through the Vikings' defensive front with aggressive cuts and patient reading of blocks. That wasn't forgotten, and it seems to have been crucial for the front office to pursue him now. The context is even more interesting when we remember that the team had already re-signed Aaron Jones for 2 years on a $20 million contract. The veteran, who came from the Packers in 2024, delivered over 1,100 rushing yards and fit perfectly in the locker room. But age is starting to weigh in. He turns 31 in December and is coming off seasons marked by minor but recurring injuries. The front office knows they can't put all the rushing for the season on his shoulders. That's where Mason comes in as a complementary piece, and not just a backup. In 2024, he rushed for nearly 800 yards, even starting only 6 games. He had an average of over 4.5 yards per carry, made a modest contribution in the passing game, and, above all, proved to be reliable. He is the type who punishes defenses in the second half when the offensive line gains traction and the opposing linebackers are already tired. Exactly the profile the Vikings need to share the load with Jones. Financially, the deal was smart. Mason is under contract until 2026, with a total cost of only $10.5 million. An excellent value for an RB2 with real RB1 potential if Jones misses time due to injury. This gives Kevin O'Connell's coaching staff flexibility to manage touches and even use formations with 2 running backs, something that can greatly benefit J.J. McCarthy, the second-year quarterback still seeking stability as a starter. It's worth noting, in 2024, the Vikings' offense was competitive but unreliable in short and third-down situations. The absence of a physical ground game in key moments cost them wins, especially against divisional rivals. Now, with Mason and Jones forming one of the most intriguing committees in the NFL, that scenario changes, and significantly. It's a clear step to protect McCarthy and ease his transition. Mason's arrival also signals a cultural shift. Minnesota wants to be more physical, tougher at the line of scrimmage, and less dependent on an explosive passing game. This offensive versatility is essential in an NFC North that is becoming increasingly aggressive defensively. And in January, when games are decided in the cold, it's the ground game that makes the difference. If Jordan Mason delivers what he has shown with the 49ers and replicates performances like the one in Week 2 last year, the Vikings will have made one of the best trades in the entire league. It's a surgical move that costs little and has great potential for return. And for those who thought the Vikings were being too quiet in the offseason, this trade is a reminder that reinforcements don't always arrive with spotlight. Sometimes they come with a sharp cut between the tackle and the linebacker, and 15 yards later, with the clock running in their favor. But while the offense is adjusting with targeted reinforcements, the defense remains an unknown, especially in the secondary. And that's where an explosive name emerges on the radar, bringing experience, leadership, and a high price tag. Get ready. The next bombshell involves rivalry, money, and risk. Rasul Douglas, formerly of the Packers and Bills, is being considered one of the potential big additions for the Vikings before the season starts. And if you, as a fan, have felt a chill just imagining a former Packers captain wearing purple, brace yourself. This is closer than it seems. Minnesota has visible holes at cornerback, and Douglas is one of the few available veterans who brings experience, personality, and an impactful history. The numbers don't lie. Douglas has accumulated 79 passes defended and 19 interceptions over 7 seasons. He is physical, has excellent route recognition, and above all has already shown he can be a leader in the locker room. something that has been lacking since the departure of Stephon Gilmore and Shaq Griffin, who did not renew after 2024. Byron Murphy Jr. remains the expensive and reliable nickel, but the rest of the group is fragile. Isaiah Rodgers and Jeff Okudah, currently projected as outside starters, were merely backups with the Eagles and Texans last season. The risk is clear, and even though defensive coordinator Brian Flores trusts the system and the youth, he knows you don't win crucial games with fragile bets in the backfield. That's why Douglas emerges as a piece that would fit perfectly, especially given his familiarity with the NFC North and his ability to shut down the field against physical receivers. The problem lies in the cost. Spotrac projects that the 31-year-old veteran will seek a 3-year deal worth $36 million, a high number for a CB2 or CB3. Even more so considering the franchise is already facing a projected deficit of nearly $60 million in salary cap for 2026. The reality is that the Vikings have $23.5 million available today, but every dollar needs to be scrutinized. Douglas didn't help when, on social media, he directly dismissed a return to the Packers. A fan suggested he go back to Green Bay, and he responded with 6 sharp words. "Don't think that will happen, buddy." This break with the franchise that made him a leader is symbolic and opens the door for him to seek out the rival that could face the Packers twice a year with a thirst for revenge. It's true that Douglas experienced a decline in 2024 with the Bills. He allowed a rating of 123.7 when targeted and had a coverage grade of only 58.9, according to Pro Football Focus. But this could also reflect a defensive system that didn't favor him. In Green Bay, he was a key piece, playing zone, with the freedom to anticipate routes and mark territory. In Minnesota, under Flores' aggressive and varied system, he could revive that style. The big question, is it worth paying a premium for a veteran player in slight decline to stabilize the secondary for 2 or 3 years? The answer may depend on what training camp shows. If Okudah and Rodgers do not establish themselves quickly, the pressure for a name like Douglas will explode. And in that scenario, waiting too long could mean losing the player to another contender. Signing Rasul Douglas would be a bold move, especially given his history as a former Packer. But if the Vikings truly want to position themselves as a serious threat in the NFC, they need to set aside sentimentality and prioritize talent. Douglas still has gas in the tank, and perhaps fire in his eyes to face former teammates. With Jordan Mason adding power to the offense and Douglas potentially being the anchor of an unstable secondary, the Vikings have 2 clear paths to reinforce the roster. One already taken with intelligence, the other awaiting a bold decision. But both show that Minnesota is playing to win. The Vikings' offseason is far from noisy, but it is surgical. Jordan Mason could be the perfect complement to Aaron Jones and make Minnesota's ground game a true differentiator. Meanwhile, Rasul Douglas, if signed, would bring experience and physicality to a secondary that currently lacks confidence. Both names represent distinct ideas, but with the same focus: winning now. In my opinion, the deal with Mason was brilliant, and if Douglas is willing to accept a restructured contract, Minnesota cannot hesitate. Those who want to win in January cannot enter September with holes in the roster. And you Vikings fan, would you accept a former Packer at the heart of the defense, or do you prefer to trust the youth? Comment below, like, share, and subscribe to the channel to follow every step of the Vikings' journey toward the 2025 playoffs.